The year is 1579. Japan is in the midst of a violent and chaotic period known as the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States era. Daimyos, powerful feudal lords, fight endlessly for control of the country. It is a time when honor and warfare dictate every aspect of life, and the samurai class stands at the pinnacle of this rigid society. But amidst these legendary warriors, a man unlike any other arrives on Japan's shores. His name is Yasuke. He is not of noble Japanese blood. He does not come from any of the established samurai clans. He is African, and his mere presence in Japan will spark curiosity, admiration, and controversy. His journey is unlike any before him. From a distant land to the court of one of the most powerful warlords in Japan, Yasuke will become something few outsiders have ever achieved, an honored samurai. Yasuke's early life remains a mystery. There are no definitive records of where he was born or how he came to serve in Japan. However, historians have pieced together possible theories based on known historical movements and events. One leading theory suggests that Yasuke was originally from Mozambique, a region heavily influenced by Portuguese traders and missionaries in the 16th century. Other theories place his origins in Sudan, Ethiopia, or even further inland in the African continent. Regardless of his birthplace, one thing is certain. Yasuke was a man of extraordinary physical presence and capability. By the time he arrived in Japan, Yasuke was serving under Alessandro Valignano, a high-ranking Jesuit missionary responsible for overseeing Catholic missions in the Far East. The Jesuits had been active in Japan since the mid-1500s, seeking to convert the Japanese to Christianity. Valignano, understanding the value of first impressions in Japanese society, likely saw Yasuke's presence as a way to command attention and respect. When Yasuke stepped onto Japanese soil in 1579, he immediately became a spectacle. Japan had very limited exposure to people of African descent. The people had seen the occasional European traders and missionaries, but an African man of Yasuke's stature, described as being over 6 feet tall and physically imposing, was unheard of. Contemporary records describe how people rushed to see him, many believing his dark skin to be covered in ink. Some even tried to scrub him, thinking his complexion was artificial. This fascination would eventually bring Yasuke to the attention of one of Japan's most powerful and influential figures, Oda Nobunaga. Oda Nobunaga was no ordinary warlord. He was a visionary leader who sought to unify Japan under his rule, breaking centuries-old traditions and reshaping the country with innovative military tactics and governance. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he was highly interested in foreign culture, weapons, and ideas. When Yasuke was introduced to Nobunaga, the warlord was immediately intrigued. Nobunaga had a keen eye for military talent and was not bound by the rigid social structures that define Japan. While most foreigners in Japan were either merchants or missionaries, Yasuke was different. He was a warrior. One of the most well-documented accounts of their meeting comes from the Lord Nobunaga Chronicle, Shinchikoki, written by Oda Guchi, a samurai and chronicler in Nobunaga's service. The chronicle describes how Nobunaga initially suspected Yasuke's skin was painted and ordered him to be washed. When he saw that the darkness was natural, he was astonished. But Nobunaga's fascination went beyond mere curiosity. Yasuke was strong, disciplined, and intelligent. Unlike many other foreigners, he could speak enough Japanese to communicate effectively, which further impressed Nobunaga. As a result, Yasuke was taken into Nobunaga's service, a rare and highly significant honor. Yasuke's role under Nobunaga quickly evolved. Initially, he served as a retainer, a trusted member of the warlord's household. He was given a residence, weapons, and even a salary, privileges not extended to most foreigners. But Nobunaga did not see Yasuke as just a curiosity or a servant. He saw his potential as a warrior. Nobunaga was known for rewarding talent over heritage, and Yasuke's physical abilities and combat skills made him an asset. Soon, Yasuke began training in the ways of the samurai. This was not just about fighting. It was about discipline, strategy, and absolute loyalty. The samurai code, Bushido, demanded unwavering dedication, and Yasuke quickly proved himself. He fought in battles alongside Nobunaga's forces and earned his place among the ranks. His rapid rise within Nobunaga's court is remarkable. Most foreigners in Japan at the time were confined to trading posts or religious missions, but Yasuke stood among Japan's elite warriors. He had become a samurai in a time when such an achievement was almost unthinkable for a non-Japanese person. As Yasuke settled into his role, Japan remained in turmoil. Nobunaga's ambition to unify the country had made him many enemies. While he had achieved significant victories against rival clans and Buddhist warrior monks, there were still powerful factions determined to resist him. In 1582, Nobunaga was at the height of his power. He controlled vast territories and had effectively eliminated many of his strongest adversaries. But his greatest challenge would come from within his own ranks. Akechi Mitsuhide, one of Nobunaga's trusted generals, had secretly turned against him. His motives remain debated. Some say he resented Nobunaga's harsh treatment, others believe he feared being replaced. Whatever the reason, his betrayal would lead to one of the most dramatic turning points in Japanese history. Yasuke, now fully entrenched in the life of a samurai, would soon find himself in the middle of one of the most infamous incidents in Japan, the Honnoji incident. This was where Yasuke's loyalty would be tested. This was where the African samurai would fight his most important battle. Them had soured. Some accounts suggest that Nobunaga had humiliated Mitsuhide in public, calling him incompetent. Others claim that Mitsuhide feared he would be replaced or that he had personal grievances that ran deep. Whatever the cause, Mitsuhide saw an opportunity. Nobunaga's forces were spread thin, his strongest generals, including Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu, were away on separate campaigns. Nobunaga was vulnerable. Mitsuhide made his move. He led his forces, estimated between 10,000 and 13,000 men, toward Kyoto under the pretense of reinforcing Nobunaga's armies. But as they approached Honnoji Temple, the deception was revealed. The cry rang out, "The enemy is here! Akechi Mitsuhide has betrayed us!" Inside the temple, Nobunaga was caught off guard. He had only a few dozen guards with him, vastly outnumbered by the thousands of enemy soldiers surrounding them. The attack was swift and merciless. Yasuke, now a fully trained samurai, stood among the defenders. As Mitsuhide's troops stormed the temple, Yasuke fought ferociously. Contemporary accounts describe how he wielded his sword with immense strength, cutting down attackers as they rushed forward. But the situation was hopeless. Nobunaga, realizing there was no escape, made a fateful decision. He would die by his own hand rather than be captured. This act, known as seppuku, ritual suicide, was the ultimate display of samurai honor. As flames engulfed the temple, Nobunaga took his own life. His retainers, one by one, followed him in death. Yasuke, however, did not. His fate was not yet sealed. With Nobunaga dead, the battle continued. Yasuke, refusing to surrender, fought alongside Nobunaga's son, Oda Nobunaga, who had gathered whatever forces he could. They retreated to Nijo Castle, preparing for a final stand. But Mitsuhide's forces were relentless. Within hours, they stormed the castle. Nobunaga, like his father, chose seppuku over capture. Yasuke, however, did not take his own life. Instead, he continued fighting. His skill and size made him a formidable opponent, but even the strongest warrior could not hold off an entire army alone. Eventually, he was overpowered and captured. Here, Yasuke's story takes an uncertain turn. Accounts differ on what happened to him after his capture. Mitsuhide, upon hearing that a foreign samurai had been taken alive, was reportedly confused about what to do with him. Some sources suggest that Mitsuhide, believing Yasuke was not truly a samurai, spared his life and ordered him to be sent back to the Jesuits. Others claim that Yasuke disappeared, his fate lost to history. What we do know is that Mitsuhide's rule did not last. Less than 2 weeks after betraying Nobunaga, he was defeated and killed by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, one of Nobunaga's most loyal generals. If Yasuke survived the fall of Nobunaga, what became of him? Did he return to the Jesuits and leave Japan? Did he continue to fight under another warlord? Or did he vanish, his legacy left only in whispers and scattered records? Whatever the truth, one fact remains. Yasuke's story is one of the most extraordinary in samurai history. The year is 1582. Oda Nobunaga, the warlord who had nearly unified Japan, is dead. His general, Akechi Mitsuhide, has taken control, but his reign lasts only 13 days before he is killed in battle by Toyotomi Hideyoshi. and Yasuke. The African samurai who stood beside Nobunaga, fought in his final battle, and survived where others perished. His fate remains a mystery. Some say he was spared, sent back to the Jesuits. Others believe he stayed in Japan, his story erased from history. But his legend has endured. From ancient accounts to modern retellings, Yasuke's journey is one of the most extraordinary in samurai history. What happened to him after Nobunaga's fall? And how has his legacy shaped the world today? After Yasuke's capture at Nijo Castle, there are no definitive records of his fate. However, there are a few possible scenarios. One account suggests that Akechi Mitsuhide, upon realizing that Yasuke was a foreigner, decided he was not truly a samurai and ordered him to be returned to the Jesuits in Kyoto. This theory is supported by the idea that Yasuke originally arrived in Japan as a servant of Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano. The Jesuits were still present in Japan, and it's possible that Yasuke was handed over to them and later sent away from Japan. But if this were true, why are there no records of Yasuke's return to Portuguese territories? The Jesuits kept detailed accounts of their travels and missions. If Yasuke had rejoined them, his name would likely have appeared in their records. Another possibility is that Yasuke, rather than being exiled, was taken in by another samurai or warlord. During this period, warriors who survived the fall of their lord often sought service elsewhere. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Nobunaga's most loyal general, could have seen value in Yasuke's strength and combat skills. However, there are no historical mentions of Yasuke serving under Hideyoshi or any other daimyo after Nobunaga's death. Could he have lived quietly, avoiding attention? Possibly. But the absence of his name from historical records suggests that, if he remained in Japan, he did not rise to prominence again. A darker theory suggests that Yasuke may have been executed after Nobunaga's death. Samurai who were captured after their lord's defeat were often killed, especially if they had played a significant role in battle. However, some sources suggest that Mitsuhide saw Yasuke as a non-Japanese outsider, which may have led him to spare Yasuke rather than treat him as a traditional samurai prisoner. The truth? We may never know. But one thing is clear: after 1582, Yasuke disappears from written history. For centuries, Yasuke's story was largely unknown outside of Japan. Unlike other samurai whose exploits were recorded in detail, Yasuke's time in Japan is mentioned only briefly in historical accounts. Why was his story erased? 1. He was a foreigner in a closed society. Japan in the late 16th century was on the verge of closing itself off from the world. Within a few decades, the Tokugawa shogunate would enact strict isolationist policies, banning foreign influence. A foreign samurai did not fit into the narrative of Japan's history that the ruling class wanted to preserve. 2. Nobunaga's defeat led to a shift in power. With Nobunaga dead, those who came after him had little reason to remember or record the achievements of his former retainers, especially a foreign-born samurai. Toyotomi Hideyoshi and later Tokugawa Ieyasu focused on their own legacies, not Nobunaga's fallen warriors. 3. Records of his life were limited. Unlike Japanese-born samurai who had family records, Yasuke did not have a lineage that would preserve his story. His achievements, while remarkable, may have been considered unimportant by later historians. But despite this, Yasuke's legend did not die. His story, though fragmented, survived through scattered records and accounts. And in the modern era, he has become a symbol of resilience, strength, and the breaking of boundaries. Yasuke in popular culture. For centuries, Yasuke was nearly forgotten. But today, his story has inspired books, anime, and films. 1. Movies and TV shows. In recent years, filmmakers and historians have taken an interest in Yasuke's story, leading to documentaries, historical fiction, and even an anime series based loosely on his life. Hollywood has also taken notice, with projects exploring his journey from Africa to Japan. 2. Anime and video games. Yasuke has appeared in anime-inspired works, where his story is reimagined with a mix of history and fantasy. Video games featuring samurai now include references to him, highlighting his unique place in history. 3. Books and historical research. Scholars continue to investigate Yasuke's origins and his role in Nobunaga's court. Writers have explored his story through both fiction and historical analysis, introducing his name to new audiences. Yasuke as a symbol. Yasuke's story resonates today because it challenges assumptions about history and identity. Breaking barriers. Yasuke's rise to the rank of samurai was extraordinary. In a society that rarely allowed outsiders to integrate, he not only entered but thrived. Strength and loyalty. His dedication to Nobunaga, his skill in battle, and his refusal to surrender embody the warrior spirit. Inspiration for the future. Yasuke serves as a reminder that history is filled with unexpected heroes, figures who defy the norms of their time and leave a lasting impact. Yasuke's story remains incomplete. Historians continue to search for more details, hoping to uncover what happened to him after Nobunaga's fall. But perhaps the greatest lesson of Yasuke's life is not in the details of how it ended, but in what he accomplished while he lived. He was not just a warrior. He was a man who crossed cultures, defied expectations, and earned a place in the history of Japan. His name, once nearly forgotten, is now remembered as that of the African samurai.